On today's tax update, we'll recap the latest with those ongoing tax refund delays, including the newest update from the IRS on the remaining backlog, including the processing of amended returns. We'll also take a look at the latest round of direct deposit and paper check tax refunds scheduled for release this week. And we'll also recap the major causes of those refund delays and any possible options you may have for resolution. Also, the IRS has announced that last year taxpayers failed to pay almost $700 billion in taxes owed, so we'll take a look at some of the causes of that. Starting off with the latest round of tax refunds scheduled for release this week, with the next batch of direct deposit refunds scheduled to go out on October 18th, while the next round of paper checks will be printed and mailed out on October 20th. For those part of the latest direct deposit batch, do allow up until October 23rd for it to post to your bank account before contacting the IRS to initiate a payment trace. Meanwhile, for those part of the October 20th batch, most will receive those within 7 to 10 days, but you must wait 30 days before contacting the IRS to report a lost or not received payment. Now, the IRS has released its latest update, and for the first time since before summer, the backlog of unprocessed tax returns has actually increased to now 845,000. There was no movement with e-file returns and those requiring special processing, holding at 800,000, but we did see an increase of unprocessed paper tax returns to now 45,000. Now, what we believe is behind the increase is because October 16th is the tax filing deadline for those who filed an extension, but also those who live in federal disaster declared areas, like most of California, who saw their federal tax filing deadline extended as a result. So now we're seeing this last minute rush of tax returns being filed, and we could expect to see the backlog grow for at least another week or two as a result. It should also be noted the IRS has indicated they processed all error-free e-file returns received prior to September 2023. So if you're waiting on an e-file return still to be processed and you filed before September, then there's an issue or potential issue with your tax return. The delay you're experiencing is not because normal processing was not completed. However, those paper returns, most of those outstanding are actually due to the fact normal processing has not completed yet, since processing times on paper returns is much slower, causing longer delays. Those waiting on amended returns, the latest IRS update shows another decrease in those that are still in process to now 817,000 remaining. It should be noted that in the last month, roughly 134,000 amended returns were processed, so given this current processing trend, that means it will take the IRS over 6 more months to finish the current backlog, not counting any additional amended returns they received, which will in fact happen. So given the current trends, the remaining backlog will not be cleared out until April of 2024, most likely after the tax filing deadline passes for next tax season. Now, as we continue to report, we are seeing processing times for amended returns averaging 5 to 7 months, as reported by our viewers as well. Taking a look at these amended return status results, we have seen a return filed back on March 28th, not completed until August 25th, so roughly 5 months. And as you see on the right, someone who filed their amended return on April 18th did not have theirs completed until October 6th, so roughly 5.5 months. Now, this does not include the wait time for someone to receive their refund as a result, which has been averaging another 4 to 6 weeks after that completed date. So when you factor that in, you're looking at nearly 7 months in the overall amended return process. Turning to those tax refund delays and the top causes of your refund delay, now we're going to jump around the list. Starting off with your tax return contains an entry error, means you inputted the wrong amount somewhere on your tax return, whether it was earnings, taxes withheld, or so on. Now this is a very common issue, and actually last year over 17 million tax returns contain these errors, also known as math errors. Oftentimes, especially for smaller errors, the IRS will autocorrect the issue themselves and at that point clear the refund for release. However, there's a significant difference in what they show in their system versus what you reported. That is likely to cause a flag for additional review, potential audit, and definitely a documentation request. Another top issue for delayed refunds is the information you entered does not match versus what the IRS has on their system. So for example, you may be reporting earnings and taxes with the information you have, but your employer or former employer has reported different information. That will cause a conflict as a result, which will lead to delays while the IRS determines a resolution. For those who claim credits such as EITC or CTC and are still waiting, you're likely under audit. This again is extremely common even if you've been previously audited and even if you've been claiming the same dependents for many years now. Because of the amount of improper claims on those credits, the IRS has increased enforcement, but as a result, many legitimate tax filers must now go through the process when they're completely entitled to those refunds. Also, if there are two individuals claiming the same dependent for EITC or CTC, that will definitely slow things down while the IRS attempts to determine which taxpayer is entitled to claim the dependent or dependents in question. This is likely a result in a documentation request, in particular to provide proof who the dependent lived with the majority of the year and if they were legally had custody of that dependent. Even now, there's still tax refunds on hold because the taxpayer has still not completed ID verification, which caused tens of thousands of refunds to be delayed last year. Now, what is normally supposed to happen in this situation is that the IRS is supposed to send out a notice, usually the 5071C letter as seen here, indicating the taxpayer needs to complete the process before processing can continue. However, as we saw the case last year and again this year, not all taxpayers who were sent this letter actually received it. So whether it was lost in the mail or sent to an old address on file and never forwarded, this is one of the issues that will not correct itself, and the return and refund will basically be frozen until this process is completed. Now, one indicator if you've received a notice would be to look for a 971 code on your tax transcript, and if you never received a notice in the mail within 2 to 3 weeks of that date listed next to the 971 code, that possibly could be an indication there was an ID verification letter sent out or another IRS request never received. You can also reach out to the IRS, which has significantly increased their phone call answer rate from the previous 2 years, to see if you need to complete this. And if you cannot reach them by phone, do contact the taxpayer advocate to determine if this is the cause of your delay. You will need to have that letter reissued because there is a control number listed on the letter. You will need to begin the ID verification process. Those 60-day notices from the IRS continue to be received by taxpayers, and again, there's not much you can do in this situation because the IRS is most likely waiting on your employer's tax information to be processed so they can match what you entered on your tax return for accuracy. If a significant time has passed, you can contact the IRS to see if this is the cause of your delay, which you can also do by checking your wage transcript by logging into your IRS account and checking your wage and income history on your Social Security account. In select cases, to continue processing, the IRS may request you to submit a copy of your W-2 and year-end pay stubs, so do have those accessible if need be. And another reason for delays is if you filed a paper return, which takes the longest to be processed. The IRS does not currently have the capability of simply scanning your paper return into their computer system, but instead an IRS employee must manually type in every single entry you made on your return into their system, and that itself has a potential for errors, as the IRS previously had a 22% error rate when processing returns. Also, the IRS will not even acknowledge your paper return was received, and you'll see no update in the system until processing begins. To make sure the IRS received the return, you will want to send it by certified mail, because at this time that is the only way you can know for sure if it in fact arrived at an IRS processing center. And finally, the IRS has announced that between taxpayers and businesses, there's an estimated $688 billion in unpaid taxes for tax returns filed just last year. Now, the result is for several different reasons, including taxes not being filed in the first place, taxes that do not report the exact income earned, and taxes that are underpaid. Now, with the IRS having dealt with most of the backlog caused by the pandemic, it is widely expected they will reshift their focus on increasing audits to reclaim unpaid taxes. They have stated they will increase audits of higher income earners, but not increase audits on households earning less than $400,000 a year. However, it remains to be seen exactly how many of those households will be audited. In recent years, we've seen EITC audits significantly increase due to the amount of improper credits being claimed, and we can expect that to continue. On a side note, to avoid the need to file an amended return for missed income, make sure you confirm that you've received all W-2s and 1099s before filing your taxes. We've seen a rush of taxpayers who want to file in January to get that refund back sooner, only to receive W-2s and 1099s they forgot about after they filed their taxes, which could cause delays with refunds and ultimately the need to file an amended tax return. Let us know in the comments section below about your ongoing tax refund issue. In the meantime, we'll keep monitoring the situation for further developments, so make sure to click on the thumbs up and subscribe button below for future updates on this channel, and thanks for watching.